Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer. His name is Raj Giri, and this is the Wrestling Inc. Thursday News and Notes Scuttlebutt Show. We got a good one for you. We're talking all about CM Punk, Dax Harwood, and of course, new shows for AEW. But before we get into all of that, allow me to introduce the man himself, Raj Giri. Raj, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Everyone in the chat, how are you guys doing? How are you feeling on this lovely Thursday? Or maybe it's a Friday, depending on where you're tuning in from. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We got Samantha and J.R. Smith and Mike Rouse in the house already. Baby Ice as well. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Good stuff like that. We got a good show for him today here, Raj. I think we've got a lot of big news that people have been chatting about, and I know that they've been waiting for us to talk about.
Absolutely. And we missed last week, so I feel like we got a lot to catch up on. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, we're going to start with, I think, the big news that everybody is really been talking about. And it came up a few days ago, but it's big enough that I think we should still talk about it. And that is the news around the water cooler is that CM Punk may be returning to AEW. And there was a lot of stuff that went around that, a lot of different reports. Raj, what are your thoughts on CM Punk possibly coming back?
Well, I mean, he is a difference maker. I mean, I think we saw that when he came back, in 2021. All their numbers, jumped up. You had their pay-per-view numbers. They did their best ever pay-per-view numbers with Punk on the card. Attendance. I mean, for the Dynamite shows, just everything, the TV ratings. They all went up while Punk was there. Then he got hurt after Double or Nothing last year, was gone that summer. When he came back, his return at the end of last summer didn't have the same impact. You didn't really see the big jump in numbers. All Out last September with CM Punk versus John Moxley that did 140,000 pay-per-view buys, which was way down from what they had done the year before, as it would be, but it was also down from the last pay-per-view that they did with Double or Nothing, even though theoretically Punk versus Moxley should be a bigger match than Punk versus Hangman. So it makes sense why they want to bring him back, just from a numbers perspective. Obviously, there's the intangibles, and
Right.
The fact that Nick Jackson had a chair thrown at him.
Right.
There was a full all-out brawl at after All Out. So it's a unique situation and those fences haven't been mended. So it's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, I always say I believe there's three different ways to look at Punk coming back. I know for me personally, as a wrestling fan, I think he's great on the microphone. I've always been a little neutral on him as a fan. Like, I like him when he's on. I'm not necessarily torn apart when he's not on. Kind of like a Drew McIntyre to me. Like, I love Drew McIntyre, but if he's not on an episode, I don't ask myself, where's Drew McIntyre? And that's
Right.
a personal standpoint. But from a business standpoint, seems to make all the sense in the world to have him back. Like you said, he draws, he brings people in. We're still talking about him all this time. So clearly there's something about him from the business standpoint. I do think, though, and I don't know anything about what happened backstage. I always say I know nothing about what happened backstage at that whole thing. I don't pretend to know. I'm not going to speculate. But I do think that locker room chemistry is one of the most important things in a team. And that's not just wrestling. I think that's football, basketball. I always say very rarely do you have a story about a football team signing the diva wide receiver that causes problems in the locker room. And the football team goes, yeah, it worked out great. We were glad we did it, So I would, if they think that's not the problem, then I say, yes, they need to get this done and get him back right away. Which I hope is the case. Because again, I think he sells a lot of tickets. People are interested. We're talking about him like crazy. We're even.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and just kind of doing a year-to-year comparison of where they're at this year without Punk to where they were last year. In Q1, which is January to March, this year they averaged a 0.289 18 to 49 rating, which is the lowest for a quarter that they've averaged since NXT moved to Tuesday nights. And last year they were averaging a 0.38. So that's a big drop, 0.38 to a 0.29. And then the one pay-per-view this quarter was Revolution. Last year they did 175,000 buys. This year was 130,000. So again, huge drop from last year. So again, he usually means numbers, and we'll have to see, what happens this time around. He'll definitely mean numbers for at least the first few weeks, and whether that can sustain is a big question.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to happen. So I'm getting ready for it. There's also talk of someone else coming through, and I want to go to on Twitter. We got a comment from Monj, who's a friend of the show. It says CM Punk possibly returning to AEW was always on the cards. He's too big of a name for them to let go. I'd wait to keep him as a quote surprise for All In at Wembley. They want to sell out the stadium, right? That's one solution. I would love for them to sign Goldberg too. So obviously I think CM Punk at All In is going to help move tickets for them. But I want to point out the surprise part, Raj. If Punk is a done deal, if he's coming back and it's going to happen, do you have him be the surprise? Do you have him be the quote known surprise, like when he first debuted? Do you advertise him? How do you bring him back if Raj is running AEW?
Well, it looks like he's coming back at that Chicago episode of Dynamite in June. I want to say it's June 17th. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's either June 11th, June 17th, somewhere in there where they're in Chicago. As far as a surprise at All In, I definitely would not do that. That's a huge stadium. Unless you're sold out, you would want to advertise Punk ahead of time to get those tickets moving and to sell out as many seats as you can. That stadium, without the stage and everything, it could seat 90,000 people. So that's a lot of seats, and you'll want to have as many, all the big guns that you can. And Punk is the biggest gun that they'd be able to have.
We're getting a couple questions, by the way. You'd mentioned ratings earlier. Questions about what does the 0.28, 0.39, what do those mean? Is it 2.2,800,000? What does that number mean?
No,
280,000?
It's basically how many people own TVs that are watching, and in this case that are in that demo. So 0.28 actually that equals about 365,000 viewers. So a 0.28 in 18 to 49 is about 365,000 viewers. When I was mentioning last year a 0.3, what did I say? 0.38. That's around 496,000 viewers. So yeah, it's just it's basically taking the number of homes that have access to the show and then dividing it by the number of 18 to 49 viewers times 100, and you get the rating.
Yeah. So in any case, we can see the numbers drop. So they were higher when Punk was there, I guess, is the long and the short of it there.
Right.
By a pretty big margin too. Not because I always say, like, when it's like a 10,000 difference, I'm like, some people just may not
right
home. But when it's a big number like that, then I think it's worth mentioning. Now, Monj did say, I would love for them to sign Goldberg too. This has been some talk of around the internet lately, Raj. Goldberg in AEW. I don't hide my Goldberg fandom. I wear it on my sleeve like a locked antler tattoo. What is this about Goldberg possibly being in AEW? Have you heard any rumors about this? Have your sources leaked anything to you? What's going on with this?
And nothing that's not already out there. But yeah, Goldberg's a free agent, and he wants a big retirement match. And Tony Khan has been interested in Goldberg for a long time. I remember, when AEW first started, he was kind of one of the names that was floated around as kind of, being one of the legends that they have on their roster. So, the only thing with Goldberg is I don't know if they have that one dream match. I mean, him against Wardlow seems obvious in Powerhouse Hobbs, but I don't know if those are like dream matches. I think Goldberg has always made a difference ratings wise when he first comes in. I think he would this time as well. Um, and he'd probably make a difference on the first pay-per-view he's on, but I think it would fade out quickly after that. So I can see him in that Sting role. Sting was huge when he first came in, and then kind of faded out. He's there. He's very well respected. Love seeing Sting whenever he's on. But if it were me, I'd have Goldberg his first match in, do something as big as possible. And to me, that's probably someone like Chris Jericho, or could do Kenny Omega. I bet you Kenny Omega could get a really interesting match out of Goldberg. Obviously, there's Punk. I don't know if I necessarily like that dynamic, but, but yeah.
Right. It is a, there is actually a lot of stuff you could do with him, I think. But it is interesting if Kenny Omega got a internet wrestling approved match out of Goldberg, Kenny Omega has to be one of the best then, right? Because the internet hates Goldberg matches. But if Kenny Omega makes it happen, we got to start giving Kenny his flowers, I think.
Yeah. And WWE with Goldberg, they never really put him in those kind of matches. They never really put him with like AJ Styles or guys like that, because he's so expensive that you wanted the biggest possible name match you could do. So it was Undertaker and Lashley and Roman Reigns. They did do the one with Dolph Ziggler where Goldberg basically squashed him, but I think that was to kind of erase the memory of the Undertaker match.
You're right.
But yeah, I think there's they could get some mileage out of Goldberg, and I think the 1-2 punch of Goldberg and CM Punk, and we'll get to the roster split here in a second, but that could be pretty interesting. That could make for an interesting summer in AEW.
Something that Casper Williams is saying, and this is kind of where I am parking my car, is turn Goldberg into a ruthless heel. I saw a picture on Twitter, and it means nothing, but it got the gears turning in my head. This new Bullet Club, they're calling themselves Bullet Club Gold, and I saw a picture with a Goldberg Bullet Club shirt, and I was thinking, oh my God, I would love Bullet Club Goldberg. Just, it'd blow my mind. I'm in for it. It's probably not happening, but I'm already ready for that ride. I feel like Bullet Club Goldberg with Jay White and Juice would be awesome to see.
I don't know if I see that. And I think they were just, some people hit that point and where they're just such a legend that they're hard to boo. And you boo just to go along with it, but you don't really hate it. And I mean, I think Goldberg, if he had a couple more years before he wanted to retire and wanted to try it out, it's probably worth it. But it'd be like him, like when Ric Flair would turn heel at the end, Sting. If Sting were to turn heel, I don't think you could get true heat from the fans. You could get the booing like you're going along with the show. And it'll be interesting with Trish Stratus, because I kind of see that happening with her right now, is fans are not going to really hate Trish. She's great in her role. I thought her promo was great this past Monday on Raw. But I don't know if she's going to get that true heat. And we'll see, because she is so good. Maybe she'll be able to do it.
That is something that happens to really good bad guys, just in general. I mean, you saw it kind of happen with Randy Orton. I think it's happening with the Bloodline right now. People boo them, but we all love the Bloodline.
Like Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
Like, those weren't true boos.
No, we love them. Like we're doing it because we're supposed to. But
right, yeah.
That leads to at One Giant Leap on Twitter saying, if Goldberg appeared for AEW, do you think he'd put someone like a Wardlow for his... I think he meant put someone over like a Wardlow for his send-off match. Do you think Goldberg wants a retirement match? Do you think he wants to go out on top, or do you think he wants to help make a new guy?
I mean, I can't speak for him, obviously, but I think when he says he's owed a retirement match, I think he wants to do one somewhere in the U.S. Where he could have his friends and family all in attendance. And I wouldn't think that winning or losing matter, but who knows? Maybe it does. But I think it's more just that experience of his whole family being there and watching, and because his last match was, I believe, is the Roman Reigns one, right, in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And I don't think his family was at that one. So, just having that big farewell moment, even if he loses, is what I would guess, but I don't know.
That would be a very long way to go to watch a family member have a wrestling match to go all the way to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, when Lashley attacked his son, wasn't that in Saudi?
It may have been. I can't remember.
I'm forgetting where that one was.
I'm terrible at that kind of trivia.
Or
I
maybe
know it
that-
happened, but I can't remember where. You know, I think it
Someone
was.
in the chat will know, because I think the rematch was in Saudi, but I thought his son was there too. Gosh,
May have
man,
been. I don't know.
memory is just going to hell.
How old is his son? His son is almost old enough to be a wrestler, right?
He was in high school, so I think SummerSlam was where they did the Lashley match, and then the rematch was in Saudi. And was his son in Saudi? I thought he was involved with that match, but I'm forgetting it.
I'm trying to. I think the reason I asked about his son is because that might be a great way to get his son in wrestling, is if he goes to AEW and then AEW picks him up for something to kind of develop him. But Jack Roman is saying Goldberg said he wants a 4-city tour send off. So if that's what he wants, I imagine he's going to probably end up going through like the Firm or something.
Yeah. I mean, he could do I don't. This sounded like he wants something outside of AEW. If it didn't happen with AEW, is a 4-city tour. I could see him, wanting to do Atlanta, and some other places like that. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. I'm all for Goldberg coming to AEW and joining the Bullet Club. Too sweet, Goldberg. Finally do it. Too sweet. You've had it too sweet right in front of you your whole career. You might as well take it now.
Goldberg with Juice Robinson. I just don't see it.
Rock hard.
Don't see it.
Yeah. I could see him being the new muscle for MJF for a little bit. That could be fun.
He's too much of a legend to be that guy, in my opinion. Now,
you're right. You're right. But Goldberg versus Jericho is here.
As I said earlier, they have history that they could tap into. So, yeah,
I agree. I feel like I like both of them. I feel like I've seen it before, even though it was like 25 years ago or something like that at this point. But in any case, I'll be happy with it. I'm a big Goldberg fan, so I'll be happy regardless of what he does, even if it's like him on Elevation beating up Action Andretti or something.
When Goldberg's on TV, I'm watching.
So speaking of on TV, there's a new show for AEW coming to Saturday nights. At least that's what's being reported, as well as a potential roster split. Raj, this is a lot of speculation, but also a lot of people are talking about it. Is this something that we should assume should we assume this is happening, or is this still very much in that just because we're talking about it doesn't mean it's official phase?
Yeah, I think until they announce it, because we've seen stuff in the past, like things in the works that didn't end up happening. But I think until it's announced, I would say it's like an 80% chance that it's going to happen, 90%. It seems very likely that the Saturday night show Collision is going to happen. Obviously, there's a lot of weird little logistics with it. Like, first of all in is scheduled for a Saturday. So, do you have All In the same day as the Saturday show? In the past, they've done their November pay-per-views on a Saturday night to avoid the NFL. Well, that would be head-to-head with your TV show. So do you, on those nights, just do a highlight show? I mean, or do you move Full Gear to Sunday when Tony Khan said he would never want to go against the NFL? And that would really hurt Full Gear pay-per-view buys being up against Sunday Night Football. So there's a lot of like weird little logistics. The odd thing is that they're talking about the brand split, right? Like having two rosters. And, traditionally when WWE has done it, it was to double the pay-per-view buys and you double the live attendance because you have two tours, and it just all revenue. Well, this seems like it's done because two sides won't work with each other. So they're like, okay, you guys can have your own shows. And that's a weird thing. It's go ahead, Jack.
No, yeah, I've never been a fan. I guess when it comes to roster splits, I'm okay with them as long as they are very, very hard splits. Like NXT does not go. I can watch just NXT and be totally caught up on NXT. And if I just watch Raw and SmackDown, I don't miss anything that may have happened on NXT. But what I hate is when I hate soft roster splits where it's like, certain people are here, certain people are there. Some of them go back and forth. There's not really a rhyme or reason that I'm aware of. And now I've got to watch all this wrestling, but I don't even know if it applies to who I like watching. So it'll depend. I think a roster split could be good for them because we've all said they have so many people on their roster that maybe this will help some people stand out. But I'm worried because they have Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor hasn't been split that well on its own. And that's a whole other brand, let alone internally AEW. So I'm a little concerned about it as it is right now. And also, I don't know what that means for what does that make Rampage then? Is I'm just confused with where they want to go. If it's just because of CM Punk, that also worries me. Again, I don't know what the situation is, but if it's just because some people don't want to work with CM Punk, I feel like, well, that should tell you what you need to know about what the situation is. But again, that's just me speculating. We'll see how it goes. It feels very weird to me, all in all.
Yeah, and again, I'm fine with them because they have such a huge roster that I'm fine with them doing a roster split. But if the only reason you're doing it is because you can't get the guys at the top to work with each other, that's going to cause other problems down the road. And I think if you really want CM Punk back, I think one of two things has to happen. Either you don't bring CM Punk back, or you bring CM Punk back, but you have to get them and the elite on the same page and willing to work with each other, because otherwise you're going to divide the locker room. It's just going to lead to hurt feelings and people pissed off backstage. And then you'll start getting, stuff like people on one roster being like, oh, I want to go to the other roster. Like I don't like how so-and-so is. And I just feel like if that starts becoming the solution, people switching rosters because they can't get along, it's just going to lead to more and more problems.
Yeah, I think we're on the exact same page there. Again, I hope everyone gets along, but yeah, if it's just, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Again, if they had broken up Ring of Honor and AEW and that was like a clean split and very easy to get, I'd go, okay, well, they know what they're doing. But the fact that I see so much Ring of Honor still on AEW and so much AEW on Ring of Honor, it doesn't give me a lot of faith in this situation. Speaking of, though, our friend of the show, Peter, said on Twitter, would love to hear your take on what the future of Ring of Honor is now that there are rumors swirling of a brand split. Obviously, the talent has to come from somewhere. Also, do you see Matt Cardona going to AEW since Collision will need Punk to compete against top stars? So, speaking of Ring of Honor, Raj, do you think that the Ring of Honor roster will be affected, or what do you think's going on with Ring of Honor with this split happening? Anything at all?
Nothing. I think it stays the way it is. Because they have now, this Honor Club app, I think it would be too much now because they have, 15, 20,000 subscribers on that thing, and to just shut it off, I just don't see them doing that this soon. So I think it stays as is. And I think, you pretty much will have three brands. It's almost like WWE with, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. But obviously ROH having a much, much smaller footprint, and ROH to me just seems like it's unless there's some real gigantic grand plan, I just don't see how it's benefiting when all this other stuff is going on. 15 to 20,000 subscribers a month. What is that? That's 200 grand a month. But then you're paying all these, all the wrestlers to fly in, fly out, the expenses of running it. So you're making a little bit, but it's a drop in the bucket for, what you're making on these TV deals, which should really be the focus.
Yeah, I definitely feel like with this stuff, I think, at least for me as a viewer, I'd love for them to just quantify what this really is. I know they love to say everything is the best, you know, the world title's the best, but the TNT title's on equal level with it. And like, they don't like to say this is the best, this is the second best, whatever. But I think it helps a company like NXT to know this is the developmental brand. This is where, because then I can watch it with the right idea. Like if Rampage was all wrestlers who are sort of being developed and coming up, I could watch it going, okay, these are the guys to look for. And I can sort of play that, who's the next one up? Who's the next person that's going to come up, and watch it from a different level or a different perspective. Whereas if it's all supposed to be the number one show, then it just feels muddy and not interesting. So if they said Ring of Honor was like their development, and then Saturday show was like their whatever, their Raw, and then Dynamite was like their SmackDown, I could at least watch it kind of knowing what I'm getting, as opposed to just, this is another hour of television of wrestling that I don't know where it fits.
And it's supposed to be 2 hours.
2 hours.
Well, the Saturday night show is, but yeah.
So, because I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they are outpacing WWE in terms of TV time by quite a bit now. If you factor in Dark and Elevation and Dynamite and Rampage and this new show and All Access, and it's, at some point people just can't keep up. Like, even if this is the only thing you watch, like, that's a lot of TV time every week. And I don't know, I worry that they're going to burn people out and not be able to keep up.
You know, the more hours of TV you add, in my opinion, the less each hour means. And you just get more filler, more stuff that doesn't mean anything. And yeah, to me, it's always been less is more, but we're in a time and period where everything is TV rights. And so the more product and the more product you have that you're getting people to pay for, or you're getting, networks to pay for, that's more money in your pocket. WWE is, as well as they're doing right now, and they're the most popular they've been in a while. Their TV, their overall popularity is a drop in the bucket compared to like the Attitude Era, but they're making way more money than back then because of these TV rights deals and just how effective they are as a business now. But so it's TV rights, and the more hours of TV you could get paid for, Nick Khan said it once, or he'd have probably 8 hours if it worked out, but
right,
which God forbid.
Right.
3 hours is, even though WWE has been so much better, over the past 8 months or so, 3 hours can still take its toll.
3 hours is a long time for anything. Even a football game can feel like a long time.
Yeah.
And you get an off season for those. We do have a super chat here from Mark Smith, who says, Tony is so rich, he doesn't even know when he's wasting money. He's a very rich wrestling fan with a very expensive wrestling habit. My thoughts on that are, I don't spend other people's money. If he's happy spending it, that's on him. It's about whether or not I enjoy it. That's what I care about.
You've got to think he's getting paid for the show. And if he is, then he's making money. So that works out.
Now, Peter did mention a name, Matt Cardona, going to AEW. I don't know if you have any insight on that. I have a feeling he'd be more inclined to sign with WWE, since that's where Chelsea Green is. But any thoughts on Matt Cardona potentially signing with a network TV wrestling company?
I mean, AEW could have had him a while ago. So I like Matt Cardona. I think he's a great character, but I don't think it makes a difference either way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of him too. I feel like if he wanted to sign a contract, he probably could have signed one some time ago. But we talked about a show coming to or starting. Now we're going to talk about a show coming to an end. And that's Dax and his show coming to an end. This is a report written up by Danny Wolstenholme on Wrestling Inc. Says the FTR with Dax podcast has been discontinued moving forward. The news was revealed on this week's final show, with co-host Matt Kuhn pointing out that All Elite Wrestling and the promotion's CEO Tony Khan had not pressured him into dropping the podcast. Harwood and Kuhn agreed that they were causing more harm in professional wrestling and AEW than good. So basically, Harwood said, here's a quote: "Ultimately, we all wanted to do good for wrestling, right? You and I don't think that this podcast, as much as we tried, dude, as hard as we tried, I don't think the podcast was reflecting that for whatever reason." I am actually I didn't listen to the podcast, to be honest, but I think that's very self-aware to know that if your podcast isn't doing good, and as you know, it can be hard to stop a podcast sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't buy all of that completely. I think there's more to it, and
Mhm.
but yeah, I'll leave it at that. Their podcast was growing. I thought they were doing well. I don't think this was the case of Matt and Dax one day being like, "Hey, you know what? We should stop this." But that's just my guess. I don't know.
You think now they just signed a new contract, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if the podcast was them just maybe reaching out to things if they didn't get the contract they wanted, or Dax trying to, put things out there just in case that contract didn't show up. But
I don't know.
But in any case,
Real quick, let's the Tornado Anthony Y saying, "I hear Warner Discovery is interested in." Can you put that back up for a sec?
Oh, where'd it go?
You don't mind?
Where'd it go? I lost it here.
Oh
yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear the Tornado Anthony Y saying, "I hear Warner Discovery is interested in having Raw when the USA Network deal is up." That was definitely something we were going to hop on here in a little bit, but let's just talk about it now. There's news. People are saying there's rumors about that Warner Discovery is interested in WWE.
Yeah, this reporter on the Sports Illustrated podcast, he's James Andrew Miller. He said that he knows that there are people in Warner Brothers who are interested in bringing on WWE programming. Obviously, for obvious reasons, if that were to happen, that would be a gigantic shakeup. If it was, if Warner Brothers, and I personally don't see this happening, but if it were to happen, and WWE went to Warner, then depending on who they left to go there, would make a huge difference. Because if they leave NBC to go to Warner, that leaves a spot for AEW to be on USA. If they left Fox to go to Warner, if SmackDown moved to TBS or TNT, which I think would be a step down, well, I don't see Fox taking on AEW programming unless it's like FS1, and FS1 just does not have that reach that TBS and TNT do. So that would be a big step down. So I don't see it happening, but it is an interesting story.
With these things, I always say to myself too, is there someone at Warner Brothers Discovery interested in WWE? I would assume there's a lot of people interested in WWE,
Right.
but that doesn't mean, I'm interested in a mansion by the beach. Doesn't mean I'm actively pursuing one.
Right.
Or even if I am, it doesn't mean that it's now it may be they may be like, yes, whatever we need to get done, it'll happen. But just because someone's interested in something, I don't think it's time to assume that that's happening right away, because I'm sure they're interested in a lot of things over at Warner Brothers Discovery,
Right.
Especially after a big, as they're getting all their stuff together as far as their streaming and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the way it sounded was there's a little more to it, like they'd want to enter talks when it's possible, but that's me speculating just on what it sounded like. He didn't actually say that, so we'll see. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I'm sure they want the NFL too. But
right. I mean, yeah, I'm sure if you ask them about most things, they'd say, yeah, we're interested in that.
Or someone is, yeah.
Someone there is. So we'll have to see. But either way, I feel like I'd be shocked if they left USA. I feel like they're so branded to USA, at least Raw is. And I can't imagine they're going to sneak them away from Fox or NBC. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think anyone saw SmackDown moving to Fox on Friday nights during the whole negotiations. I think a lot of people assume like it would be both going to the same place or SmackDown staying on Tuesday nights, so you just never know,
Yeah.
ultimately money talks, and someone wants to take Raw, and, there was a mention about if it was Warner Brothers that they'd want Raw to move to a different night. I could see another cable network if they want Raw, wanting it on a different night, just because that's 5 months out of the year where you're getting hurt in the ratings due to football. And
Right.
you have it on Tuesday nights, the competition isn't near as bad. So,
Right. It's,
yeah.
I mean, and SmackDown's changed days a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah.
NXT's changed now too. So I think we've gotten used to Raw on Mondays, but I don't think there's anything sacred when it comes to TV. Whatever's going to make you the most money is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Even
And
if it's on a Tuesday.
Right. And as SmackDown has shown, every time they move, they've maintained their audience. So,
Right.
yeah.
Speaking of maintaining audiences, we touched on it a little bit, but just to bring it home here, AEW's ratings came in, and this was from an unverified Twitter user, Raj Giri. Says,
I'm verified.
Are you still verified? I thought everyone lost it.
I'm paying for it, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
verified Raj Giri. The
Yeah,
real
I need that edit button, and I like the longer tweet, so I could put all the rating stuff in one tweet instead of having to put out like 3 or 4.
I've always said, sidebar, all thoughts on Elon Musk and everything aside, he really handled this whole thing poorly. Like, he could have made a ton of money selling this stuff, but he positioned it in a way that made it so uncool. But I think if he positioned it right, everyone would be paying for Twitter right now, I guess. I don't know. The salesmanship, I was a little disappointed by, all other things.
Yeah.
Unrelated. Because I think Instagram is now you can pay for it, and a lot of people are doing it. But
really?
Or Meta, I guess is anyways. I feel like I thought the salesmanship could have been better, Elon. I feel like you didn't sell me very well, is all I'm saying. But any case, we did touch on a little bit. So 0.28 in the demo was down 24% year over year, 830,000 viewers total. Not a good number. They used to be trying to break 1 million. Now they're trying to break 850.
Well, I mostly pay attention to year over year, because I think that tells the bigger picture on if you're growing, if you're sustaining, or if you're declining. And then they have been in a consistent decline. They haven't been up year over year with the audience and the 18 to 49 rating since the December 14 show, which was The Winter Is Coming. But as far as the numbers this week, I mean, they were just down a little bit from last week as far as the audience. It was down 4 or 5%. But the 18 to 49 rating was even with last week. And NXT, we saw that was up a little from last week. Raw was down slightly, 0.59 to a 0.58. So, and that's with the NHL playoffs starting this week. So week 2 of the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs didn't have an extra effect on wrestling this week so far. And yeah, that's Dynamite. That's kind of where they're at. They're at around that 0.28 to 0.28 level, and it's down a lot from where they were last year, where it was more like in the high 0.3s. They were the 0.37, 0.36. So yeah, I think they need a little bit of a shot in the arm. And again, Punk coming in, maybe perhaps Goldberg, that should be able to do it. But once they do come in, I think they need more storylines, and this is just my opinion. Where you don't have to be a wrestling fan for 15 years to get it, or you don't have to be watching every single week to be able to get into the storyline. I thought that's what was so great with the Sami Zayn Bloodline storyline, is you didn't have to know Sami Zayn's background or that he was in NXT or any of that stuff. You can easily get into that storyline and follow along and get into it. And I hope they do more stuff like that. That's, again, I hate that mainstream casual thing sometimes, but when I say mainstream, I'm a casual fan versus hardcore fan, not mainstream. When I say a casual fan, I mean someone who's kind of familiar with what's going on in the show, but is not tuning in all the time. and just kind of sucking those guys in, because I think WWE did that beautifully, and you see their business is booming right now by doing that with the Bloodline storyline with Dominic and Ray, and they're reaping the rewards right now.
I always like to use the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, as the example, because we get in the weeds with wrestling, but I feel like they do a good job of, there's a whole bunch of stuff for comic book fans who've been fans their whole lives, but if you haven't read a comic book, you still get it. You're still enjoying it, and it's still fun too. And I think that's what WWE is doing with the Bloodline, to your point, is there's a lot of stuff if you want to be the person that gets granular and it's like, oh yeah, this was because something happened a long time ago or whatever, that it's there. But also if you just jumped in for the first time, you still get it. It's still enjoyable to you too. And yeah, I think they need to find that balance of those kinds of things, because I don't know if that's video packages or simplifying things or whatever, but there's a lot of stuff that if you haven't been paying super close attention, you think, I don't get it, you know?
Yeah.
Last night, Takeshita coming out to help the Elite, I get it because I watch it, but if you missed like the 2 1-minute segments where Callis was talking to Takeshita, you might be like, I don't get it. Why is he helping him?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe a video package or something to explain that, or maybe commentary. I don't know, but I got it. But if you just jumped in and parachuted in, you'd never know.
Right.
We got a tweet from at Hellberg_A, who wants us to talk about this story next. Ted DiBiase Jr. Has been charged with the theft of millions in federal funds in a Mississippi indictment. This was written up on Wrestling Inc. by Miles and Colby. Ted DiBiase Jr., who won the WWE Tag Team Championship twice over the course of his 6-year WWE career, has been formally charged with stealing millions of dollars intended for low-income families and individuals in Mississippi. The federal indictment was unsealed today and contains 13 total charges, including theft, fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The move comes 18 months after DiBiase Jr., along with his father, Ted DiBiase, and his brother, Brett, who was also briefly involved in wrestling, were ordered to repay millions in misspent welfare money, and 1 month after Brett pled guilty to fraud. Not the kind of news you want to hear if you are the $1 million family. Any insight on this one? Have you read anything more about it beyond what's up on the article?
Yeah, so he's been charged with 6 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 4 counts of money laundering, 2 counts of theft concerning programs receiving federal funds. And here's the kind of scary part for him. If convicted, he faces a maximum of 20 years in prison for each wire fraud charge for each one. And like I said, there's 6, 10 years for each money laundering charge. And like I said, there's 4, and then 5 years for each conspiracy charge. So that's obviously he's not going to get life in prison over this, but those are some serious charges. And you would think he's probably going to face some jail time, or some significant jail time. His father is obviously WWE Hall of Famer Ted DiBiase Sr. His other son, Ted Jr., they were named in a civil suit last May that was related to the scandal. So, yeah, this is serious stuff for Ted DiBiase Jr.
Yeah, it's whenever criminal things like this come out, obviously the whole innocent until proven guilty, it's going to go to court. They're going to settle things there. I'm a big believer in, if he's guilty, I hope he gets what he deserves. And if he's innocent, I hope he proves himself that way. I hope no one was wronged in the end, because that's the best case solution or best case situation. But look, man, if you do terrible things.
Sorry, Veggie Gamer. Veggie Gamer just popped me. Hold on.
I'll pull it up here.
From $1 million man to nails.
1 minute you're the $1 million man. Everybody's got a nail.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's
it's serious stuff.
Yeah. Dominic, maybe I saying Dominic could give him some pointers on how to survive in the big house.
Oh, yikes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll see how it all pans out. But if he did wrong, I'm glad he got caught. If he didn't, I hope he is able to prove it.
Yeah.
We got a couple other little comments here on Twitter if you want to jump through those. One Giant Leap says, do you think a reason for The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, etc., not appearing at WrestleMania 39 is that they want them to be at WrestleMania 40? It's going to be the biggest of all time.
No, I think The Rock, his schedule he's, running a football league right now, and he's just so busy. You have to work around his schedule. There's no guarantee he'll be available for WrestleMania 40. If I'm betting, I doubt he is. And Stone Cold, again, time is not on their side, so it's I don't know. I just don't see it. I think it was more he got a great offer, he thought about it, and then decided against it.
Yeah, I don't think with WrestleMania you don't go into WrestleMania saying we're going to wait on this one and make the next one better, especially when you're looking at stars like The Rock and Stone Cold, who, like you said, they're not old for Earth, but they're getting old for pro wrestling, and
their bodies, and
yeah,
getting injured and everything like that. It's not easy to, what Austin did last year was amazing with Kevin Owens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do.
No, and even a guy as fit as Vince McMahon couldn't take a stunner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think anyone said let's hold off a year to make 40, because then the next thing you'd say, well, but 50 is going to be even bigger.
Yeah. With The Rock, you got to take him when you can, and they weren't able to get him this year.
Yeah. If they could get The Rock at Backlash in Puerto Rico, trust me, The Rock is no, they will want The Rock. If you can get The Rock anywhere, you take The Rock wherever he's available. We also got a comment from Cesar Sanchez 88, who says, I just want you or anyone to justify how this mid-card pillar story main eventing their marquee pay-per-view of the year doesn't make AEW look closer to Impact than the big leagues. I said, yes, we will talk about this. He said, thank you. To be clear, I think it's fine for a secondary pay-per-view, but for your WrestleMania, it's baffling. These guys, MJF excluded, are not over at that level to get that spot. It's The Miz at WrestleMania 27 all over again, except now there's 3 of them. Raj, I personally like what they've been doing. I feel like you disagree, even though we've not talked about it. But what are your thoughts on this? And then I'll let you know why I think it's great.
No, I don't necessarily disagree. I did think their segment sucked. Well, not sucked. On Wednesday, I thought it wasn't good until MJF came in, and I thought all the guys were exposed just on the mic. They just can't go that long on the mic in a talking segment without being carried with someone that can talk like MJF. It was just weird. I thought that whole segment last night was weird. And Darby celebrating getting a bye. To me, his character, he always seems like the kind of guy that is not trying to get the easy way into things. And and he seemed, happy about it, which is something a heel would do. So I don't think marquee wise, this is a strong pay-per-view main event. Depending on which way they go, whether they're going with MJF versus Darby or a 4-way. Does seem like they're going, with the one-on-one, but they could always say Jungle Boy was screwed, and Tony Khan comes out and says they're doing a 4-way, something like that. But if they don't, MJF versus Darby as the world title match for a pay-per-view is not the biggest marquee match that they've done. It's towards the bottom, in my opinion. But hopefully they have a stacked undercard. If they're doing the Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club. And some other stuff underneath, it could still be, a decently strong show. But again, I think it'll be a tremendous match. MJF and Darby already had a great match, but marquee wise, I don't see it being a big deal.
It's so a few things. I think we kind of agree on some of these things, but first off, to Caesar's point specifically about this being the WrestleMania of AEW, I don't think it is. I don't think they have a WrestleMania. So I don't think that this is necessarily the same thing as them trying to get a Roman versus Cody Rhodes, because I don't think any of their shows are looked at as a WrestleMania. Maybe All In will be at this point, but I don't think.
Yeah.
I feel like whatever one they're building to is the one they say is the biggest show of the year at that time. I feel like they say about Revolution and All Out, and they never say it about Full Gear, though. I will say Full Gear is never talked about as the big one.
Yeah, and not Revolution either. Those two are the non-WrestleManias for sure. I can see why he's saying Double or Nothing, because it is their first pay-per-view under the Tony Khan. All In was not under Tony Khan. So,
but to your point, I think the reason I'm okay with this is two reasons. The reason I like it is two reasons. I think the undercard is wildly stacked. I think if you're looking at, you're going to get Adam Cole versus Jericho, I think is big. I think Kenny Omega and whatever combination against a team that has Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson on it is really big also. And so I think you've got two big marquee matchups already. And what I liked about this build, I hope it's a 4-way. I don't like the idea that it's just gonna be one of them, but these are guys that we've been saying are pillars for a long time. It's been years now. I think it's time to throw them in the deep end and just see how they do. And I don't think they're ever going to develop if they just keep having these like small one-offs without that big feel. And is this the moment they make the transition to the main event? I don't know about that, but at least we're now seeing them in it and see how it looks, as opposed to never knowing, if that makes sense. Like, this is at least we're kind of pushing them out of the bird's nest a little bit here, I think is what I like about it. And it's no longer you're Jungle Boy, you're going to eventually be that guy. Now it's like, okay, let's see how you do. You've been here for years. You've had a chance to learn. You've had a chance to see things. You've been on TV. Let's see what you do when you're in that situation. That's what I like about it.
Well, I mean, if last night was seeing what they can do in that situation is not a good start. Because look, Darby has a unique character. It's kind of like that Jeff Hardy, where he doesn't have to really be great on the mic or do a long interview segment. Jungle Boy is a little different. I feel like for him to get to that level, he has to be better on the mic. And he's progressed some, but he's not close to there. And, Sammy's of the three, he's the best on the mic for sure. And can also, and they all three obviously can go in the ring. So we'll see. If Pillars is just guys that have been popular, that have been there a long time, but they're not necessarily main event caliber. We'll see. We'll see what they do.
I will agree. I think they've got some room to grow still, but I guess I don't think they ever would have gotten there if it was always going to be Darby Allin versus Lee Moriarty. No disrespect to Lee Moriarty, but I think we got to see, like, okay, what do you look like when you're in that spot? Because I think sometimes that shakes out who belongs and who doesn't. I look at LA Knight as an example. He was this guy in NXT. You put him on the main roster, and you're like, oh wow, this guy actually is the real deal. He should be that guy. But if we never gave him that chance and just had him in spots with like Boogs, I don't know if we ever would have figured that out. But since we put him in I was part of it. We put him in a big spot, with Bray Wyatt and stuff. It allowed us to go, oh wow, this guy really can hang, or when he was in there with the Undertaker and that kind of stuff, you go, oh, this guy really can hang. He's not just a loud guy. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
No.
And again, there was that one year they did Pac versus Orange Cassidy versus Kenny Omega. That was 2 years ago. And
was that 2 years ago? Jeez Louise.
Or 3 years ago.
Was that 3 years? I don't know. Just time is weird. It feels like that wasn't that long ago, but you're probably right.
Yeah. And, gosh, that was the one with no fans, right?
I can't remember.
It was either 2 or 3 years. I think it was 2020. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Kenny Omega. I gotta Google it here now.
All right.
It looks like it was. Is that Double or Nothing? 2021, 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago. Okay.
Double or Nothing in 2021.
So that wasn't necessarily a big marquee matchup, but it did pretty well. Like, it held up. It like the numbers didn't really fall or anything. So, there's always the chance that this one, AEW has a very a consistent pay-per-view buy rate right now. They're in that 130 to 140 range since Punk got injured. And if they can maintain that, I think it's a success.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. We got 2 more from Twitter here. At Jiu-Jitsu Burner asks how hot WWE ticket sales are right now. I think they're good.
They're huge. I mean, they just did a house show. Gosh, where was it? This past weekend they did like over 7,000 people, and for a house show before, it was like 3,000 to 4,000 was considered really big. So they're just doing huge numbers. Raw is like, before doing 10,000 for a Raw was considered a big deal. Now they're doing that pretty often. So they're on fire right now. And SummerSlam doing 32,000, on the on sale date or whatever, including the pre-sale. I think that's the best that they've ever done for a non-WrestleMania show in the US. So, they're on fire.
I will say an old trick I use when wrestling shows are in town is you wait till the last minute and you get super cheap tickets because they're just trying to offload a bunch of tickets.
Right.
Not a good move this time around when they came through. Cost me a lot of money to wait till the last minute.
Yeah, with WrestleMania.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's my gauge. I mean, it's WrestleMania, so I should have known better. But
yeah, hopefully, and hopefully they can keep it up. There are some storylines that I think the Bloodline versus Sami and KO had been awesome, but now I see it starting to drag a little if they keep it going. Like, I think it's time for them to move on to something new.
And that'll be a real tell is if they can pivot to something new and keep it fresh, as opposed to, because I just started to feel like, okay, I've seen this before. Now it's time for something new.
Yeah.
Last question here is Doug Kraft, how dare you? It says being cheap is You're not wrong, but you're out of line.
You're out of line, Tut Graph.
Cronky at Chai City 91 with a question. I don't know if we can really get into, Raj. It says discuss Succession. I haven't watched this season yet. I'm all the way caught up to this season. I think I know one of the big spoilers already, though. But I was waiting for a few of them to. I'm waiting for it to get a little closer to the finale so I can just binge it and watch it.
We're getting close. But as far as TV dramas goes, as long as it doesn't crap the bed by the time the finale comes, it's on my Mount Rushmore of dramas. With that, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, and Game of Thrones. So.
Yeah. How's this season so far? If you were to rank the seasons, is this so far like best season, worst season, middle of the road? Where are you at? Where do you feel?
Best. I think this is one of the few shows that I felt has gotten better season to season. Breaking Bad was another.
Yeah.
Where every season just built on top of the next. Breaking Bad had an amazing finale. Hopefully this show does, because Game of Thrones, their last episode was, a fart in church. It it meant nothing. It sucked. It kind of brought the whole series down. But overall, up until that point, I thought that show was great.
Yeah, Breaking Bad's great. I've loved seasons 1 through 3 of Succession. I'm super into it. Like I said, I try to wait until it's a little closer because I hate having to wait for the next episode. I get so sucked into it. So we'll see. But I definitely am a big fan of it. I can't wait to start catching up. Big Time Baxter in the chat says, do you think AEW's lapsed 18 to 49 into WWE nowadays? That's an interesting thought. Do you think that maybe WWE is stealing AEW fans these days?
I do. I do think when one is more interesting, you'll get, most people aren't hardcore wrestling fans that can watch everything. And so when you start to pick and choose and you have other stuff you're watching, if you're watching NBA and NHL, that's, already so many nights a week. Mm-hmm. You get pickier. And I think when one is more interesting than the other, you see that the people change sides or change shows. So absolutely. I'm sure that's part of it. I don't think that's the only thing. Yeah.
I would say if you're a casual fan, WWE is probably the easier to watch right now. Just because I feel like Bloodline stuff is very easy to get into. There's a lot of stuff that's very easy to get into if you're a more of a casual fan. I'm a big AEW fan before everyone comes at, Jack's so biased. I love AEW. I'm just saying. I think right now, if I was a casual fan and I wanted something that I could just tune into irregularly, WWE is probably the easier one to go with.
Yeah.
We also got what are your thoughts? We got this one. This is important. Baby Ice asks, how about The Shield or The Wire?
I have not seen either of those. I've been meaning to watch The Wire. But yeah, I haven't seen either of those. So soon. Right now I'm on Billions, which has been really good, but I'm only on the second season. So maybe after that.
I just finished Last of Us, and that's really good, but it's one season, so you can't really put it on any best show list. You got to go like 4 seasons before you're allowed to be on that list, because I got to see if do you fall off. Lost would have been one of the best shows ever if we just counted one season.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yellowstone, that's another good one, but that's another one. Like, it's kind of fallen off the last season.
It's hard for
shows.
Still
good, but it's fallen off a bit. Cobra Kai, I don't think that counts as a drama, but I love that show too.
Yeah, it's not the same if it's comedies and things are different. It's hard to, like I say, if you watch cartoons, like it doesn't count, like Simpsons and all those other shows that are on for like 25 years, those don't count either.
Same as like Curb Your Enthusiasm's been on a long time, but even that, I can't put them. Those are just 2 very separate categories. You can't compare like Seinfeld with The Sopranos.
Right. Because I could watch reruns of Seinfeld all the time, but I would never like, oh, here's a random episode of Breaking Bad. I'm just going to sit and watch. But that kind of does it for us. I think we've gotten through all the news of the day. Daniel LaRusso was the bully.
I watched Karate Kid with my daughters after we were like a few seasons into Cobra Kai. And I remember starting to see things more from Johnny's side.
I'm surprised we're not seeing more Cobra Kai type reboots where it's like like what people are doing later in life. And I don't know.
Top Gun and Creed have done that as far as movies go.
Yeah, I guess I meant more like TV shows. Well, I guess Cobra Kai is not a TV. Anyways, you're right. Top Gun, amazing, by the way.
And I love the Creed movies too. So.
I haven't seen Creed yet. I got to check Creed's out.
See it.
Creed 1 through 3. I'm waiting for the series to be done so I can binge them all.
No. It might be. Who knows?
No, but I definitely got to watch those. But I do know Maverick was really good. I didn't want to like it because everyone said it was so good. I was like, okay, this is going to be overhyped. And I walked out like, totally buzzing from the movie. I'm like, I'm going to go fly an F-16.
Yeah. I didn't care for the original Top Gun, actually. And I love Maverick.
Yeah, I super into it. So, but that does it for us. Thank you to everyone who has been watching and joining us in the chat. Before I go through the roll call like I usually do, Raj, where can the world find you online, and what's the kind of stuff you're working on these days?
Yeah, so we were saying we're going to try to do an episode next week. If we don't, this would be my last episode. I'm leaving Wrestling Inc. at the end of the month, as I mentioned. And so I'm starting, I'm going to be doing some consulting, helping out other web publishers, especially ones that run ad-supported websites, help them. I've been working with ad networks and everything for the last 25 years. And I know how to optimize, revenue for a website. So looking to help out with that. If you have an ad-supported website and you're interested, DM me, Raj Giri, and I've had a blast doing this, but I might be back next week, so we'll see.
Raj, doing the thing like where you're at the party and you open the door to leave, but you stop and like wave, and if someone sees you, you'll like continue talking, but if not, you're gonna take off. Not quite sneaking out. You're doing just enough to not sneak out, but.
And thank you everyone in the comments. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're all gonna miss you here if this isn't the last one. I won't get too emotional because we're gonna be chatting on a show called Practical Money regularly, where we talk all sorts of different savings and investing and money types of concepts and things there, which you can find at youtube.com/@practicalmoney. I think we've got a new episode coming pretty soon here. We're excited to get to. So definitely check that out. But Raj, if this is it, I mean, do you have like a sign off you want to do? Any type of actually, well, we got to say Samantha, Tutgraph, Timothy, Mark Smith, Big Time Baxter, Jeffrey Sullivan, Baby Ice, and then Tornado, and everyone else. Thanks so much for being here. Like, comment, share, subscribe. But Raj, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you do the sign off, and I'm going to hit end broadcast as soon as you're done. You're going to sign us off on this one.
Well, guys, the site has been a dream come true, and couldn't have done it without you guys. I really appreciate all of you. Love you guys, and I'm always here on Twitter. I love interacting with you guys. I try to answer all DMs and try to answer as many messages as I can. So keep in touch. Really, my life would be so different without you guys. So thank you so much.